Hello, my name is Kathy Bissell. Welcome to the Golf Show 2.0. We have a really exciting guest. He creates the kind of things you use every time you play golf. The golf ball. Gary, why don't you introduce him?
Well, they call him the Wizard. And I have to say it, today we're off to see the Wizard.
Let me get my hat.
Yeah, it's still better. It's better than being called the Gizzard or the Lizard.
That's true.
He's a senior technical advisor at OnCore, maker of those great golf balls. And he's been around the business a long time, been involved in some of the more famous golf balls of our era. John Calabria. John, welcome to the show. John, by the way, John's playing hurt today. John, show us your injury.
Got a cast on from surgery.
Yep. Too much golf. You had arthritic thumb. Is that right?
That's right. A lot of things contributed to it, golf being one of them.
Let's just call it a golf injury. It sounds more manly.
Okay.
John, why don't you give us a quick rundown? OnCore has gone through some different golf balls over the years. Why don't you give a quick rundown of what the products are right now, and then we're going to get into the fun stuff, talking about the golf ball, and obviously OnCore balls go too far, but do other models too, and the whole issue. But tell us about OnCore Golf and what you got.
Well, OnCore's been around for 10 years. The claim to fame was a hollow metal center golf ball, which I think a lot of people know. They were able to get the USGA to approve it after a lot of discussion between OnCore and the USGA. The basic concept is move weight to the perimeter of the golf ball. What does it increases the moment of inertia of the ball, and it reduces side spin, and it also reduces spin overall. So we find that to be a very good thing for our golf balls in particular, because we're the only ones who are doing what we're doing with the movement of the weight. And so that leads us to the golf ball lineup that we have now. We start with the Avant 55, which is a two-piece golf ball, has an oversized core, very soft cover, low compression, and that's really a golf ball for seniors, some juniors, women can use it, and people who have a low swing speed, basically. The reason for that, it gets the ball up in the air. The Avant gets in the air quickly, which is what you need and what you want for more carry, more distance. And it has, like I said, it has a great feel. It's a great golf ball for cooler weather because it's going to feel pretty good even though it's cold out. And that's important to some golfers. And it's got great distance. Now, obviously, it's not going to spin like some of our higher end golf balls because it is a two-piece golf ball, but it'll give you some control around the greens. And so, as I said, it's good for a certain group of golfers. From there, we move to the Elixir. And the Elixir is a urethane covered golf ball. It's a three-piece ball. It's meant for the mid swing speed, somewhere between 85 and 95 miles per hour. And it's a mid to high trajectory golf ball. But it's another one with really good feel, very, very good distance. And it'll give you the spin you want into the greens, as well as the low spin off the tee, in a nutshell. From there, and stop me if you want to for any questions at all. From there, we graduate to the Vero golf balls. We have Vero X1 and Vero X2. And Vero X1 is what we would like to call our tour ball, if you will. It's got a very thin urethane cover. It's a four-piece golf ball. So it gives good control with longer irons. It gives really good control with wedges. Low spin off the green, off the driver. But what's unique about that, and the Elixir has the same technology, is that moment of inertia. So what we find from testing and from talking to the better players who are using the ball, someone like an Eric Compton and others, that the ball, when you hit it a little bit off, it tends to want to find its way back towards the fairway. Now, this is not going to fix somebody who's got a banana ball. So it's not that kind of saving grace, if you will. what it does is it reduces the side spin. So if you put a little side spin on that ball and you can see it starting to head to the rough, that side spin will not overtake the ball and it'll keep it in play. And we feel that's really key for a lot of golfers. That increase in accuracy is very important, because all of a sudden you're hitting the fairway, you're not in the rough, or you're hitting the green, you're not off the green. And so we're really pleased with the way that ball turned out. It's got great feel. It's about an 85 compression golf ball, and it's really, really long. As the point, go back to your point, Gary. Yes, OnCore golf balls are long. They're still conforming, but they are long. And we can talk more about that.
And that's why you're the wizard.
That's right.
Which of these do you sell the most? Which of these do you sell the most of? I'm going to guess you sell Elixir as your biggest seller, because that's where most people's games and handicaps are.
Well, surprisingly enough, from the last time that I talked to Keith, who's the president of OnCore, the Vero X1 is the biggest seller.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you know, part of that is it's new. It hasn't been around as long as Elixir, for example. I didn't get to tell you about X2, which is another golf ball in that Vero family. But what we've done with X2 is we've upped the compression to make the ball better for the higher swing speed golfer. So it's 10 points higher in compression than the X1. It's a little longer because it's got a little more speed from that higher compression, but it has the same technology, cast urethane cover, 4-piece golf ball. It's got the perimeter weighting like I talked about, and it's a really, really long golf ball. And that's what, Eric Compton is playing on tour.
Now, John, there's one thing I've never really understood about the 3-piece and 4-piece golf balls, and maybe you can help me out by explaining why this is done.
Sure.
Yeah, first of all, why do you have like 4 layers of stuff?
Well, we do that because we want the golf ball to have different performance with different clubs. So the core, being the engine of the golf ball, is going to be the driver of speed, generally speaking. Okay.
Okay.
Now you can make that core large, or you can make it a little smaller to accommodate the different layers. And as you do that, you change spin. And in order to accommodate that change in spin, you need to come up with a layer that's either harder or softer to get the kind of spin you want out of the golf ball. So you can do it with 1 layer on top, 1 mantle. You can do it with 2 mantles, or you can do it with 2 cores, depending on the type of performance you're looking for. So that's something we would do in the lab. We would mix and match different materials to see what kind of performance we're getting out of that particular golf ball. And in addition, I don't want to forget about the dimples, because they're extremely important. And they would play a role in the overall performance of the golf ball. So you tie all those things together when you're designing. And you probably are aware there are 5-piece golf balls out there. There are 6-piece golf balls out there.
Really?
Yes. And as advertised, those are designed to do different things with different clubs.
Okay.
Now, will they do it a lot? It's very subtle, I think. Some players,
I don't know. If I see a box that says 6-piece golf ball, some assembly required, I'm probably not going to buy those.
Yes, I would say don't buy those.
It's kind of like
not included.
Yeah.
It's kind of like building a sandwich when you have like pickles and mayo and tomato and lettuce, and you have to figure out which one is best for you, I guess.
Yeah, I liken it to making a cake.
Yeah.
That's what we talk about in the factory all the time. You bake the core, you put the icing on, which is a mantle or 2, and then more icing with a cover, and then you decorate it.
Now, what's the advantage of a thin cover versus a thicker cover?
The thin cover affects spin versus thick. It also affects the feel of the golf ball. So the thinner the cover, you're going to be able to allow some of the other mantles that are on the ball, or the core, if you will, to come through and do what they're supposed to do. Okay. So again, it's just a way of making the golf ball perform for that audience that you're looking towards.
So you can feel that bouncy part of a golf ball with a thinner core.
Well, you'll feel, let's say you have a hard mantle underneath a thin,
Okay, well, that would
soft
be
cover.
hard then. Yeah.
Then you get more of the feel of that mantle coming through than you would with a thicker cover.
Okay.
But also that depends on the cover formulation, Surlyn versus urethane, because those are basically the two covers that are within the industry and being used right now.
What do you use?
We use urethane for all of our balls except for Avant 55, which is a Surlyn cover.
What was it technology-wise? I'm going back in time here. You were at Titleist, helped create the Titleist Professional, which was one of the all-time great balls. When we got to that Pro V1, what happened that it was a jump? Was it just manufacturing technology? Did somebody tip onto a secret? What caused this jump in golf balls that we've seen in the 20 years since then?
Okay, well, that's an interesting story, and I'll try to keep it brief as I can. The wound ball, as a lot of people know, was the predominant golf ball prior to the Pro V1 coming out. And it had been the predominant golf ball for many, many years. And we could do a lot of things with the windings and with the liquid center and solid centers that we used, but there were limitations as well. So if you're familiar enough with a wound ball, and a lot of people who've tried to cut them over would be, there's a liquid center or a solid center. It could be either one, depending on the performance. And then surrounded by very tight windings, okay? Like if somebody wanted to create a very bouncy rubber ball, they would start winding rubber bands around it. Have you seen these people who have these collections of balls like that? Well, that's what we used to do, but we do it automatically with a machine. The drawback is you could only make that rubber so tight. If you got too tight, they would start breaking inside the golf ball when you hit it. Okay. So there was a compromise there. So what it did, it limited the total velocity we could get out of a golf ball. But in addition, those balls tended to have a high spin rate because you had a lot of moving parts inside that golf ball. So the breakthrough with the solid ball, and this is something that we used to talk about in the industry all the time. The holy grail for a golf ball was distance like a two-piece, spin like a wound ball.
Yeah.
And that's what we have achieved with the solid golf balls because we have a lot more options in terms of materials to put together to give the performance we want.
So everybody was chasing that holy grail, and Titleist got there first, basically?
Titleist got there first, but the reason they got there first is because of the cast urethane cover. They could not build a ball like that unless they had a thin urethane cover. And that was a technology that was started with a Titleist Professional.
When you do that, do you have like little molds and you pour cover material into them and then break apart the mold and glue the ball together?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
Cast urethane's a liquid, yeah.
And then you have to file down the seam or make the seam happen in between dimples or something so that it doesn't roll in an irregular manner, I suppose.
Yes, that's buffing.
Okay.
But we have two different kinds of buffing. We have seamless and the standard buffing line.
So was there a eureka moment at Titleist when that came together? Was there a big party? Did you guys did you guys know?
We knew we had something special. The eureka moment, and other people have tried to do cast urethane golf balls, and the thing that was lacking, either they had the cover formulation they wanted, but the process was very difficult, or they had the process they wanted, but the formulation didn't work.
Okay.
And what we did at Titleist, as you pointed out, we put those two things together that had never been done before.
And that's why it went longer all of a sudden for everybody?
And that's how they were able to get to the solid golf ball, because they had been able to put the thin urethane cover. And then it just opened up all kinds of things that you could do with a golf ball to get distance, to get spin off a wedge versus off a long iron versus a mid iron. So it just expanded the whole world of what you could do with golf balls.
Yeah, it's easy to forget what a big change that was because
it's huge.
I was playing we were all us average handicap guys were all playing Surlyn balls for years. And I know in the 90s when I wanted to get better, I finally sucked it up and switched to balata ball, which, you know, I couldn't afford very well, because if you got 6 holes out of a balata ball, you were doing well when you're an average player. And
Very
all
true,
of a
yes.
sudden, here's a ball, as you said, it's got the distance of a Surlyn ball, but it's got the feel of a balata ball and the distance of a Surlyn ball. It was the best of both worlds.
Right, and the spin of that balata ball, but it was controllable spin. If you recall playing balata balls, as you just said, if you hit a balata ball with high spin off a driver, and I'm talking 3,000 RPM roughly, and you had a headwind, that ball was going to upshoot like crazy, and you'd give up distance. Now with the solid balls, you can optimize the dimples and do other things like I talked about with the perimeter weighting that'll mitigate some of the effects of the wind. And that's important.
Let's talk a little bit about dimples.
Okay.
Because I remember seeing what I thought was an insane golf ball at the PGA show one year. It had 512 dimples, and they were itty bitty.
Yes.
And the people making them said they putt better. And I went, okay, but 512 dimples, what's it do the rest of the time?
You're right on the money, Kathy.
Okay.
You are right on the money.
Did you see that ball?
I've seen balls like that, yes. And
okay.
Part of the problem with having really small dimples on a golf ball is when you paint it, they tend to fill in. And that's not good.
No.
You destroy the characteristics of the dimple when you do that with paint. And yes, it will roll better on a green, but that's just one part of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. So right now, dimples typically will run anywhere between 300 up to 400 dimples on a golf ball. Over the years, we've found out that that's a really good number of dimples in that range for the performance we want. However,
and they aren't all the same size either.
Thank you for that lead-in. Yes, okay. I was just going to go down that road.
Go down that road.
They're different sizes. They're different depths. They're different shapes. So you'll have dimples. Some are hexagons. Other dimples are obviously round. But the way they're packed together on a golf ball will give you the kind of performance you're after. Will give you symmetry. Will give you just overall better performance. Now you brought that up. I'll tell a little bit of story about how dimples used to be laid out on a golf ball before the advent of computers. You used to take a bowling ball and you would put stickers on the bowling ball and you would see how they fit around the top half of the ball, of the bowling ball. And if you didn't like it, you peel them off and you rearrange it until you get some kind of symmetric pattern that you could then go ahead and produce for a golf ball.
Wow.
That sounds pretty low tech.
Very low tech, but it worked.
Well, we didn't have computers. You had to do it somehow.
That's right.
Exactly. Hey, somewhere in my office right now, I've got a sleeve, still got a sleeve, brand new, never been used, of the Royal hexagonal dimple golf balls from, I think, the mid to late 60s.
Yes, that's about right.
Ooh.
I remember trying to play those for a while, and it was like they cut up like they think they had so much surface area. They didn't even last like balata. It was horrible. But they really look cool.
Yeah. Uniroyal did a lot of interesting dimple patterns back in the day. And it's still going on today, but the dimples that you see on a golf ball today are so engineered that you really are getting the benefit of that computer technology, the computer-aided technology. But I'm sorry if I'm leaning a little bit. I think my cast is pulling me over. I'll try to sit up a little bit.
It was a golf injury. It's okay.
Okay.
You're talking with pain. You're talking through the pain. Thank you.
Yes. What's interesting about the dimple patterns, and they can be designed beautifully, but if you don't paint them properly, you've destroyed the aerodynamics. And a lot of people don't understand that how you paint a golf ball is critical to its performance.
Never heard that.
Yes. Typically, like a urethane golf ball will get 3 layers of paint. It'll get a prime coat, a top coat, and a clear coat. And they're roughly 1/1000th of an inch, maybe, in thickness. If you go heavier than that, you're going to puddle in the dimple, which is no good. You've just shallowed out the dimple. And when you shallow out the dimple, you make it fly too high. And,
okay, how do you do that?
well, let's say
you throw them in the air and spray paint on them and keep them. I mean, how would you?
It's a highly automated process, painting dimples, painting golf balls. Okay, and you control the weight of the paint that goes on the golf ball.
Okay.
You've got it sitting in front of spray guns, and it's spinning, so you get a uniform coating, top and bottom, and all around the seam, and you control it by measuring the weight. Yeah. And
then you buff those little things that it was sitting in between.
Well, the buffing comes before that. You buff the ball before you paint it.
All right.
Okay.
Well, just from listening to the Wizard talk about this inside dope, it's easy to see why the USGA has a hard time keeping up with the Wizard and all the other ball companies, because that's pretty high-tech technology that why would the USGA have access to it? So where do you think we are in that process? Are they catching up, or I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what my question is, but it's, you've heard the talk. The ball goes too far.
Something Jack Nicklaus has said that.
Go too far for me or any amateurs, but the pro game seems like it's pushing the envelope. Where are we?
Okay. Well, I knew we were going to talk about this, and I've had a strong opinion for a long time, and I think the USGA does a good job in covering what the golf balls do and setting an example for what the golf balls should be. I sometimes think they may go a little bit too far in trying to restrict it, and here's where I get into my view of the whole thing. The golf ball is the single most controlled piece of equipment in the industry, and has been since 1976. We have the velocity spec, we have the weight spec, we have the size spec, we have a symmetry spec, we have a distance spec. All those things combined control what the golf ball will do. But it's done under one set of launch conditions. And those launch conditions don't replicate exactly what's being done on the tour. Yes, there are some guys out there who will hit the ball like the USGA tested at, but a lot of them don't. And you know that from being in the golf industry.
I'm here to tell you that there's no way the USGA could replicate Gary Van Sickle's golf swing.
That machine would, Iron Byron would be broken.
Yeah, it would revolt. Yes, I understand. Do the same thing with my
Iron Byron can't keep his left elbow bent.
Right. Good point. But it's true. You watch the guys play. Now, all the really good golfers have similarities, but all their swings are different in some way, shape, or form. And that creates distance or spin or whatever you want to talk about that's different from each other. And so the USGA cannot test under all those conditions. So what they're looking at now is the way a golf ball is optimized for a particular player, as well as LPGA players and so on. From that latest article that they had put out, or summary, they were taking launch conditions from a 7-degree launch all the way up to 15 degrees. So when looking at that, they're covering 99% of the people who play the game, from a pro to a rank amateur. But everybody's going to hit that differently. So my view is leave it alone. The controls that the USGA has now are in place, are good. They do a good job of controlling the golf ball, and they don't need to change it. And if they, there's the whole controversy is, do you change it just for the pros and leave it for the amateurs? Leave it alone. Well, the amateur game is so different from the professional game. And they want to, I think they do want to keep one ball for everybody. And if you bifurcate, you're going to have problems. So I'm not a proponent of that. I think the way it is right now, it's good. Are the balls longer? Of course. But we had that argument 100 years ago when the Bounding Billy came out. Everybody was saying the ball's too long, the ball's too long, when it was compared to gutta percha. So that controversy is going to continue.
Well, you're seeing it now with, it seems like every tournament has to have at least one drivable par 4, which was unheard of back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah. So if we think the ball goes too far, do you think maybe we need to look at the equipment? If we want to rein the pros in, should we be looking at shafts or club head sizes instead of the ball if we did want to restrain them?
It's everything. Yeah, you're going down that path. You need to look at the clubs. You need to look at the way the golf courses are set up. People need to understand these guys are athletes now. They're training hard. They're stronger. They're taller. They're more flexible.
Yep, they're bigger.
All those things contribute to distance. Now, could you do something to slow them down? Yeah. Slow down the fairways. Grow the grass.
Yeah.
They won't get as much roll. Narrow the fairways.
I remember being absolutely shocked the first time I was at a professional tournament as to how short the grass was. I mean,
yeah,
it's just, it's hard to believe grass lives at that height.
Yes.
It's so short. And I grew up playing on bluegrass that was like that in the fairway and like that in the rough until August, and then everything died because we didn't have watering systems then.
That's right. Grass on the fairway now in a pro tournament is what is the length of what it used to be on the greens.
Yeah, Augusta National's even less. If you play there and have a ball in the fairway, you feel like you don't have a very good lie because it's just not sitting up at all. The grass is so short. It's a tight lie every time. Your average person is going to have a tough time. Not that they're going to care if they're at Augusta National. They're at Augusta National.
That's right.
But it's not so easy to hit an iron off the fairway there. That grass it's like hitting off a really good green.
That's exactly right. And their games are designed to be able to play off of a lie like that. Those guys are so good, they can adapt to anything. And you could give him a range ball. When Tiger Woods in his heyday, you give Tiger a range ball and say, play with this. He's still going to beat everybody.
Yeah.
Dustin Johnson, same thing. Give him a ball that's shorter. He's still going to be longer than everybody.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you did shorten the ball, all it's going to do is change how far they hit it, but it's not going to change really who wins. I mean, look at Augusta. They've had to buy a chunk of the neighboring Augusta Country Club, and they've moved the 13th tee back up on what was one of the fairways of the other course. So we're going to see that in April for the first time because, it turned into a driver 3-wood 8-iron, 9-iron instead of requiring a 3-iron or 4. I don't even know if anybody carries 3 irons, but it has changed the game, and everybody's looking for an answer. But if there was one, if there was an easy answer, we would have found it by now. There's no easy answer. I mean, bifurcation solves the problem, but nobody wants to talk about the fact that what kind of expense would that be for the ball company if they had to make 2 different kinds of golf balls, one of which the public is never going to buy.
That's right.
Well, the public would want to buy those.
They're not going to want to buy the pro ball that doesn't go as far.
Well, they're going to want to buy it at least once.
No, they aren't. As soon as they think it doesn't go as far, they're out.
But they think it does because the pros hit it as far.
Well,
you're saying make a pro ball that goes shorter?
Yeah, the pro ball that goes shorter. Yeah, they're not going to want that.
Right.
Correct.
You can't give those away.
Yeah, those balls would be optimized for that pro or for the pros out there in terms of distance. It would cut it back. I don't think people want to see that.
Speaking of optimized, one of the players that you worked with in terms of, I guess, customizing golf balls was Fred Couples. And Fred has a lot of fans. Yes. What kind of a golf ball did he need?
Well, at the time I was working with Fred was back in my Maxfli days, and we put him in the Revolution golf ball, which was really the first hybrid ball, if you will, somewhere between the old Bellata balls and the Pro V1, because it had a solid center. And that was a really long ball in its day, and Fred really liked that ball, and he did very well with it. Nowadays, I think he's playing Bridgestone, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
He is. Was he Was he hitting a metal driver when you worked with him?
Yes.
Okay.
He was. And again, Fred was one of the longest drivers of the ball back then, and still could be today if he wasn't having physical issues. Mr. Nicholas, same thing. I worked with him for a number of years, and he amazed me what he could do with a golf ball at his age at the time when we were working with him. We were at the golf course in Atlanta, East Lake, and we were doing testing with a new golf ball for him, and there was a dogleg left par 4. I don't remember which hole it was, and he said, "I'm going to take it up over the tree, right to left, and put it on the green." And I went, "Okay, go ahead." And he did. This was in the 90s.
Yeah, okay.
It was amazing. And we always used to talk about that. The equipment he used was so different from what was available or would be available to him now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what a player like that would have done with the equipment that's out there now?
A lot.
Well, there's always been the talk, too, that he played that McGregor ball, which a lot of people felt was inferior to what was available, and they wonder what might have been had he played a better ball.
Exactly. I'm glad you said it. I didn't want to disparage a former competitor.
Well, McGregor's they're gone. We don't.
Yeah, but you're right.
Yeah, Tiger was playing Tiger came out playing a Titleist ball when he got on tour. Did he not?
Actually, Tiger started out playing the Maxfli ball.
Did
he?
Because of his relationship with Greg Norman.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it didn't last a long while, but he then
the ball or the relationship?
Titleist.
Yeah, I think we know his relationship with Greg right now.
Both.
Yeah, not very good. But
that's a great piece of trivia. I did not remember that.
Yes, he did. Well, there's another one for you. Annika Sorenstam played the Revolution for a little while before she moved to Callaway.
You know, and this is coming out of left field, but one thing I've never heard is the women are hitting the ball too far in the LPGA. We've got to rein it in. Nobody says that.
No.
Why is that?
Because the courses are set up too long for them, probably.
Well, I mean, have they not gotten the same advantage that the men got with that ball?
They do. They have the same advantage, but their swing speeds are slower. A little bit slower. But here's the thing, and I hate to even say this, but I'm going to say it. I love watching LPGA players play because they're closer to my game than the professionals.
Yes.
And I've played with the LPGA players in Pro-Ams. And back in the day, I could keep up with them. I could never keep up with Fred Couples.
Yeah.
The only time I outdrove Fred Couples was on a par 3.
Well, it's what you said earlier. You watch the men, and that they don't play the same sport as us.
No.
But you watch the women, they do. And
Yes.
I've said this about the senior tour, but the same is true of the LPGA. Anybody who attends an LPGA event in person, at the end of the day, they go home. They had a great day.
That's right.
It's great to be out there. It's great to watch them play. In most of the events, you probably don't have to fight some of the ridiculous crowds at the men's event. It's just a great day to watch golf.
Yeah, and you can relate to it.
And you can relate to it. I mean, unfortunately, they hit it past me too, but it's not so far that I go, that's unbelievable. I just go, gee, that's demoralizing.
Yeah, and they're great players. They're great athletes. But as we all know, it's been talked about so many times, golf on the PGA Tour is entertainment. The people want to be entertained. They want to see the long drives. They want to see the guys get to the greens in 2, make eagle or even albatross.
Yeah.
They want to see the drivable par 4s. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
They can do that.
And if they would set up the courses a little differently, you'd have the same situation on the LPGA as you do for the results for the men. But you'd have to shorten the courses so that they had a drivable par 4 or so that they had an opportunity for eagle. The way their courses are set up for them, they're still hitting a lot of 3-shot par 5s, I think.
That's right.
And so that's you know, the LPGA needs to get a little bit more savvy about showmanship, my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're doing it a little bit, and excuse me for saying this potentially, but they're dressing differently. I think they're making the players on the LPGA more attractive. And there's a lot of very attractive women who are, again, great athletes. You can't take that away from them. But it's still entertainment. The people want to be entertained. But I'm an advocate for the LPGA. People should be watching them on television, go to the tournaments, just like you said, Gary, because you can relate to them. And they're very friendly people.
Before we let you go, can you give us one dirty little secret of the ball industry that we don't know? It doesn't have to be sensational. You gave us a good trivia about Tiger and the Maxfli, but is there anything about golf balls and making them golf balls? You know, these $50 dozen balls actually cost 9 cents to produce. Just give us one little inside piece of info.
Okay. Well, you know, everybody always asks me, aren't all golf balls the same? Especially at the high end. And I say, you know, for the most part, they're all competitive. They'll all go the distance you want them to go. They'll all spin relatively the same. And relatively is a broad range, okay? But typically, all the high-end golf balls are low spin off the tee, higher spin into the greens for wedges, because the guys don't like to back them up anymore. They want that control of hit, jump, stop. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing out there right now. So, yes, the differences are subtle. There are differences between golf balls. But generally speaking, they relatively perform the same in terms of what players are looking for right now. But we slice and dice it. So a guy playing the Pro V1X who's got that 100-mile-an-hour swing speed or 110-mile-an-hour swing speed, or playing the Vero X1, is going to be using that ball properly. Somebody with an 80-mile-an-hour swing speed is not going to get the benefit out of that ball because they can't compress it. They can't take advantage of the properties that are built into it. So it's an education process. It's just trying to get the guys fit, and gals, into the right ball that's going to maximize their performance for them on the golf course and make it more pleasurable.
Gary, you know what it's time for?
Oh, it's time for our shameless plug, John. Subscribe now. It's free. Nothing will happen. You will receive no emails. Kathy's pointing to the top of the screen.
Yes.
Also click on like, because as I've stated many times, our goal is to somehow get enough viewers that we can reach our threshold of 17 cents profit. That's our goal. We want to make 17 cents.
Okay.
We're not just doing this for fun, John. We're doing this for profit. 17 cents.
Where do I send the check?
Well, you can send it right to me. Cash would be preferred.
Okay. I'll put the coins in.
Small denomination coins would be the best.
You got it.
Untraceable.
You got it. I do have one more story for you, if you have time.
Sure.
It's a really quick story.
Absolutely.
And I can tell it because back in the day, it has to do with wound balls. So Maxfli had a wound ball just like a high-end ball, just like Titleist and some of the other companies. And one of our customers happened to find a Maxfli HT sitting in a field with a cut in it. So he takes it home and he starts putting a screwdriver in there to try to find out what's inside the ball, which we all know is liquid center, windings, cover. Well, he can't get the screwdriver to go in far enough, so he decides to put the ball in his mouth and bite through the cover. What's going to happen? The liquid center is under pressure. It explodes through the windings into his mouth. And unfortunately, the guy got injured. But then he turns around and sued Maxfli for failure to warn to not bite into the golf ball. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about that kind of thing anymore.
It sounds like his wife was the one who spilled the McDonald's coffee in her lap, and then it was too hot, so she sued McDonald's and somehow won.
Very true, Gary. Yes, sir.
That's incredible.
Right.
When I was a kid, we would climb over the fence at the local country club and find balls in the cornfield and take them home. And of course, we cut them open because what's inside? Then you're unwinding it. All this rubber yards and yards of winding.
Rubber bands. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get to the center, and my brother or somebody said, "Don't cut it open. There's that stuff inside is poison." And like,
yeah.
So of course, well, then we're definitely cutting it open if it's poison.
But it wasn't. It was water.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but
it was water and some corn syrup. Yeah.
But we cut if a ball was already cut, we couldn't resist taking it apart because it seemed cool. I don't want to say I miss those days. It did have a charm, but I'd rather have a golf ball that, I mean, I've used the same ball for, multiple rounds without even thinking about it. It's knocked out around a little bit maybe at that point, but I don't know. It still seems to perform the same. The durability is incredible now.
Oh, it is. You can play a golf ball 18 holes, 36 holes or more with no problem whatsoever. And the shelf life of the golf balls has increased. I get asked that question all the time. How long can I keep my golf balls?
Yeah.
I said, if you store them in a good environment that's not too hot and not too cold, years, they're going to do fine.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's a bad move by the ball makers making golf balls that are so sturdy that what happened to planned obsolescence? Those Balata balls flew off the shelves because they didn't last long. These things are too good.
Yeah, but they're still losing them at the same rate.
Well, yeah, that's right.
So don't worry, we'll make more.